We are going to break down some inconsistencies, suspicious elements. We're doing Menendez, OJ, Charles Manson, Cecil Hotel. Scott is one of the foremost experts on LA crime scenes.
Scott Michaels is Hollywood's most trusted historian of crime, tragedy, and scandal. For decades, he ran the iconic Dearly Departed tours, guiding thousands through Los Angeles' darkest stories.
Clark Fogg, who was the forensic pathologist in Beverly Hills, told me that was the only crime scene that he ever went into. He needed an umbrella because it sprayed everywhere.
It just makes me think about that case, Brian Kohlberger, of people saying that they had to wear galoshes and boots because there's so much blood.
This has been the most bizarre and crazy, has the most legs of any true crime story in the history of the world.
OJ always coming up with a different story about the cuts, saying it was from golfing, it was a broken glass. I mean, he was continually lying.
I read his biography. I would never ever say that somebody is born bad, except in his case.
I just think there's one more big twist in this, and well, every time we get together with Scott Michaels, Kato and I, we end up talking about places that most people don't want to walk during daylight, and that is what we're going to do today. Scott is one of the foremost experts on LA crime scenes and true crime in general. We're looking forward to this, and we are going to break down some inconsistencies and maybe some suspicious elements that, you know, most people don't want to talk about, but we're going to do it today. Welcome, everybody. I'm Tom Zenner. This is Tom Zenner Scandal YouTube channel and 1 Degree of Scandalous with the one and only Kato K-Train Kalen. Kato, good to see you, buddy.
Great to see you. Great to see you. Now, Tom, I look at our comments, Tom, all the time. I don't think in any of our shows Scott Michaels is not mentioned.
I know.
He's kind of taken over the page, man.
It's like some freakish obsession with the guy. You know, just how he likes him, apparently. Yeah. All right, let's bring him in, Scott. It's always great when we have you in here. And, man, it's been, I don't know, maybe 7-8 months since we talked to you. And since then, Kato and I have done what you normally do. We went and visited some crazy sites. That's part of our gig, too. We hit Cecil Hotel. We hit the Hillside Strangler sites. We hit Richard Ramirez. And we had Frank Salerno in our studio this past week for 2 killer episodes. But today we're going to talk about Simpson, O.J. Simpson. I know this is a case, you know, it's 31 years old now. Never will not be a big deal, especially for our audience. And I'm really excited to talk about this with you, Scott and Kato. You know, this is something you haven't talked to Scott about either, but there's some specific things that I'm going to bring up here. I'm going to force you guys to think. And Scott, if you want to surprise us with maybe some stuff that you have in that magical museum-like office of yours, feel free to, because I know you got some great artifacts.
I do, yeah. Well, I you know, it's funny when that happened back in the day. There were about maybe 2 or 3 tour companies in Hollywood at that point, and I ran Graveline Tours, the original one with the Hearses, and I didn't follow it so much because Nicole at that point, you know, it was a blip. It was on the front page of the LA Times, a little article like that. But it blew up into a thing, so I put it on the tour. That's what I do. That's what I always did. We went by Rockingham and Bundy, and we were really. I mean, God, they went after us. The press went after us big time. And it's like, well, you guys are the ones jumping on the bandwagon. This is what I've been doing all my life. So it was an interesting thing how that kicked off the whole bringing true crime into the mainstream. Back then, you know, nobody was talking about it, and now there's 25, 24-hour, you know, stations devoted to it. So it is a different time, but that ushered in the whole true crime genre as being a genuine, legitimate passion for people.
Yeah, you know, Scott, you had mentioned earlier when you and I were talking before going on that you said the 94, the whole case, the whole OJ story is when people went to the supermarket and kind of hid their true crime magazines in the bottom of their shopping bag.
Yeah.
But now it just blew up because of it. And now look at true crime. It's the number one genre, and everybody from podcasting to TV shows, everybody watches true crime.
You know, I visited the Bundy Drive a couple of times because that's what I did. And I met Jerry Springer at the gates. You know, he wasn't even shooting. We walked up to it and it's like, okay, there's Jerry Springer. You know, it was the weirdest thing, but that's LA too.
Back in the day, Tom and Scott, Jerry Springer's company called me, I would say 5 times every day. Springer, this. They want me on the show, which I never did, but I ended up bumping into Jerry in airports at least 3 different times, and very cordial. And then I was invited to the roast at the Friars Club. And Bill
Oh,
Maher was
wow.
the MC of the dais, and I was part of the dais, and it was just, I was at the Friars Club thinking all my dreams coming from Milwaukee, and I'm here with every major comedian, and just like an incredible time. Had some jokes, and
God,
and
they were still alive back then too. All the good ones were still there. I mean, it was, oh wow, that's crazy. That would have been
it was
amazing.
great. Yeah, you're right. Everybody was still alive, and that was what it was still like the biggest thing to do. But you talked about your tour, Scott. I was wondering, not many people know this, and I don't know if you even know this. Did you on your tour, besides going to Bundy and Rockingham, do you know that I lived at Gretna Green in Nicole's guest house? Did that ever hit a
No, I
blip on
didn't
your?
know that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, the home was actually owned by Scott Valentine from Family Ties.
Wow. No, I had no idea. So how close were you to that madness when those calls happened? I mean, were you living there at the time when
Yeah,
when he was
one
like
time
not
I didn't meet anybody till 1993. 89 is when a lot of the domestic violence happened. I like to clarify this, that I didn't know of the pictures that Nicole took of she had in her safety deposit box. That was all 89. 93 is when he broke the French doors. That
Mhm.
was at Gretna Green, a 911 call. I happened to be not there at the time, but coming the time when I saw police, and then I end up hammering the doors, and she told me that OJ's crazy and all this, stuff that was kind of going on in her head. Of OJ broke in, he tried to do this, but and the police were there, and on the 911 call, you can kind of hear her saying, "Oh, that's Kate, that's the guy who lives in the guest house." Well, that was me she's talking about.
Okay. God,
In
that was
that
a
little,
terrifying call. Oh my God. Yeah, that
yeah, that was
was
the call in '93.
okay. And then you went from there. That's obviously how you and then you moved in with OJ.
Yeah, no, that's a whole nother no other story to that. So that was when Bundy was there to move in. It was in the same house. It wasn't a guest house, and I back talked to my mom and raised strict Catholic. It's a whole thing, but I decided not to. And they were dating again. They were together again, and then he had said, "Till you find a place, you can have a bungalow." And
Wow,
that's
that's mental.
the
Just
story.
mental.
Crazy. Okay, so OJ on the minds 30 years later. We're still talking about it. These are, I could let you guys go on and on because you were in the middle of it, Kato. Scott, you were like rising up, 30 years doing this for your whole life. But let me get into one thing. Now, we're going to talk about some controversial things people don't want to talk about. We're going to bring them up today. We're going to kick them around. I'm going to share some stuff that I'm working on or hearing. I'm sure Scott's going to fill us in on some things, and Kato's here as the expert on all this stuff. But we're doing Menendez, we're doing OJ, we're doing Charles Manson, and we're doing Cecil Hotel. And we're starting with OJ. And I'm going to throw this out there, guys. And I don't know why, but this thing is starting to pick up a little steam. And I don't know if it's a coincidence. I don't know if it's the universe talking to me. But I blocked it out. But the second killer theory, it's just come up randomly on our show, Scott. And I'll tell you, we had Jim Clemente, who is a renowned FBI behavioral scientist, right? 22 years with the FBI. Now he writes for Criminal Minds. Genius dude. Kato and I were just randomly talking about OJ with him, and he started talking about the evidence, the way Ron Goldman's defense wounds were and how the bodies were laid, that he made it so matter of fact almost that there was a second killer there. I didn't press him because I have some other things I'm working on, but I mean, it's been thrown out there. Do you give credence to it? Do you think it's a possibility? Have you blocked that out? Is it nonsense?
Well, I'm not a big conspiracy theorist, and I like to believe what's being presented to me. We know that that's not the case a lot of the times, but it's hard for me to fathom how, just all the facts that I know. I don't know what's if anything's been withheld. All the facts I know point directly to. Now, the only thing that I found kind of interesting was when they discussed Jason, I believe is the son's name. That one made me go, well, that's interesting. I wonder about that. But it's still because he was a chef, I think, and he knew how to operate cutlery, I guess. But everything else, fits. I mean, he bought the knife. He did. He was seen at the street, and as you know, people often say, "Oh, there's no way he could have got there in time." You get there like that. I mean, it's not that far
On a Sunday
away.
night, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's that one just goes out the door. But it just seems like in the blood in the car, and but it just to me I'm not gonna, I will listen. I will listen, and I could be convinced, but
And Jason's interesting too because of the intensity that he ran to the Bronco at the end of the chase. When the snipers were in the trees and they were on a shoot to kill order, if OJ walked out with a gun, because they had it by that point, right? They had snipers, LAPD in the trees. They were everywhere. And then I just it couldn't get any more dramatic. And then it did when Jason just sprinted to the Bronco. But Cato's got such a perspective here too, Scott, because he's been to the warehouses of evidence, right? And we have had Tom laying on our show many times. Tom's convinced it was only OJ. But Kato, what's your thoughts on Jason? Did you know him at all? And when I say out the second killer theory, what's your thoughts?
My thoughts are, first of all, it is out in the news because I just got a phone call from the New York Times last week that they're going to do a story on this or not. So I gave my opinion was it's the most investigated case in the history of any LA crime. They would have found something. And my theory is that it's OJ. I don't want to do the conspiracy theory. A gentleman who was a Canadian Mountie police named William Deere wrote a book, said OJ's guilty but not of murder. I met with him because at that time it was a dinner with Martin Sheen and Charlie Sheen. And William Deere set this whole thing up. And I was at a dinner. This is back when the West Wing was number one. And I just told him, I said, everybody wants to sell a book. But I said, I don't believe in any theory. I think OJ acted alone. And that is it. And if someone else is involved, how can they be living with themselves, I think. As far as like El Cowling, he loved Nicole. Jason loved Nicole. So I just rule that out. I don't know.
But it'd be easy to define how she might have been disliked by people. Do you know? Like the Brown family, there's an element of, you can kind of, I would never victim shame. I don't mean it in a nasty way.
They made those theories, Scott, about the Colombian necktie and all the drugs. And, I didn't go out with Nicole and OJ like socially. I mean, that was a different, I was a struggling actor. I didn't have the same funding. So I never really saw drugs at all. So any of that, I think they tried to, when Cochran brought it up in trial, I think they just tried to plant a seed to the jury. No other reason to just plant a seed.
Yeah. I mean, remember that there was another murder in Hollywood, Brett Cantor, I think was his name, who worked at the Dragonfly, who was one of the owners of the Dragonfly, and he was brutally murdered, still unsolved. But because Goldman worked there as a waiter and Nicole used to go there as a client, they tried to say it was a serial killer at the beginning. The judge wouldn't allow it ultimately, but they were doing anything to muddle things up. Yeah, anything they could do to confuse people.
I think this has been the most bizarre and crazy and has the most legs of any true crime story in the history of the world. Crime story, news story, media story, and it continue to will. I won't rule out anything because there's been so much bizarre stuff that's been attached to this. Now, a couple things I'll throw out there that I've heard. Henry Lee initially wanted to work for the prosecution. Okay. Because I think his aligned thinking was there may have been another killer there. Okay. And Marcia Clark wanted nothing to do with him. He ended up helping out the defense, which is kind of crazy. Okay. The other thing too is OJ's defense wounds, right? And when you think about how violent that crime scene was and how horrific it was, and for him to come out of there with just a cut on his hand, that's going to make you scratch your head a little bit. Now, the thing, Scott and Kato, he's such a narcissist. He's such a sociopath. Is he really going to take the fall for somebody else? Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what trips me up a little bit on this thing, because I can't see him covering up for somebody unless it benefited him. And if it was a family member, then maybe you get it. But I'm not saying it's not impossible. And I'm going to try to put a whole episode together on this. And it's just really got me thinking with the New York Times calling Kato, some of these things I'm hearing out there. I just think this thing will never die. And we'll probably have another big twist in it at some point.
Yeah. And Tom, we have someone like Jim Clemente on there that he's a profiler and he's a pretty amazing career he had. So that was the first time I've heard of someone like that bringing that up. But I also know that he wasn't part of the inner circle that I saw the investigation. I saw the warehouse of all the things that Tom Lang showed us for that show he did. And I just like you said, Tom, he's a narcissist, and there's no way he would not say, well, someone else is involved. And OJ was just lucky, I think, to get off. And I think the defense had planted so much doubt that
Yeah.
the jury came up with a decision.
And also, I would say, yeah, it's established OJ was a narcissist. However, he didn't even fart without permission from the attorneys. You know what I mean? Shut up! Don't say a thing. We're going to handle everything. And yeah, they didn't give him a chance to screw up. Every single thing he did. The whole with the glove and all that business. That was all contrived. So yeah, I understand what your point. It's like the Manson murders in a way. The girls had such big mouths. There's no way they would have shut up about burying more people. Yet they say there's more people. So it just, I don't know. In that case, they couldn't reel him in. In OJ's case, they kept him on point.
Yeah. Everybody connected to that thing was self-serving, or at least the main characters, right? So you can almost see how, okay, maybe someone believes it, but if it makes them look bad, the truth really isn't going to get out. And even with the evidence and the police, the detectives went through such hell, because they were under such a microscope. It's so unfair outside of Furman. But even with Tom Lang, had to go through, it was just too much when you consider what a great detective he is and how amazing. You can see how you can almost convince yourself, no, my theory holds true. It's right. I just think there's one more big twist in this. And I don't know.
Nobody wants to get involved. When a friend of mine, well, my husband actually worked at the LA County coroner, and he was assisting with autopsies, and he was there when like Whitney Houston was brought in, and there was a time when there was a sort of cachet. I wouldn't say cachet, but an interesting story to go home to. I did this today, but then when they bring them in now, everyone's like, I'm out. They want nothing to do with it because of the scrutiny that the LA County coroner went through for that, and the just the abuse that they have to endure. So it's changed a lot in that regard.
I think also that to kind of wrap this up with OJ, I just think with OJ always coming up with a different story about the cuts. We've had it with Lang. We've had it with other people saying it was from golfing. It was a broken glass in the hotel. I mean, he was continually lying. And as Tom knows many times, he tried to say that we ate in the kitchen after the McDonald's drive with the burgers, where I said, no, we didn't. Why? And it was in my mind, I'm going, why is he lying about this? So I think that kind of, for me, points that it was OJ and OJ only. And he's my opinion, he's a guilty man.
Yeah, but you know what? No one's saying it's not OJ, right? And that cut to me, Kato, too, is a telltale sign. But I think the bigger question is, is there a possibility somebody else was there helping him? Maybe any member. Did you when you went on the tours? Was that one of the most popular spots for you, Scott, with the tours back then? Like Bundy.
Oh yeah, because I couldn't get enough of it. I mean, that was we were filler. In every show they were always what are those crazy people in LA doing now? And they we're on so much media attention. Every stupid talk show, we were on dating shows. I think we were in the first Blind Date or whatever that show was called with Jenny McCarthy. It was like we were the pilot for that because we were good. We were good value. We were a fun story. So
I think that was Roger Lodge.
Was it?
Roger Lodge, who's now a radio host, Kato, on the Angels, the California or the LA Angels radio network in Orange County. He's a sports guy.
Wow.
It's funny.
It was fascinating because that was it. We're sitting here giggling about it because that's the way it was back then. It became not about the victims anymore. It became this wacky pop culture phenomena, and it removed those people, those victims, as being corpses on the ground with these horrible wounds to being, let's talk about, their socialites and all that.
And Scott, you would probably know better than anybody doing the tours, and you have to drive all the time. How many times in life has an actual street off Sunset been blocked and no longer entrance?
Rockingham's no longer you had to go through Cantor. We had to go Cantor Street.
That's what I'm saying. So it's amazing that they had to actually block no longer a street off Sunset as Rockingham.
Yeah, we had one time because we were driving those. It was a '68 hearse that everyone was in, and we went to the house. And right as we passed Rockingham, the car broke down, and nobody had cell phones back then. So I had to hoof it down to that hotel on Sunset, which is about a mile away, and call taxis for everyone. And then I had to sit in the hearse in the like right there in the height of it, waiting for a tow truck. I even walked to the mayor's house, who he lived right over there, and rang the bell, and they wouldn't even help me. It was awful. It was awful.
Hey, Scott, I love your style when you go on tours, right? You're cool, you're calm, you're smooth. Kato and I come in like a freaking battering ram, and hey, we're big, we're on Sunset Boulevard, we're dramatic, or I'm trying to be as dramatic as possible. But when you go on these, because Kato and I just experienced something when we did the Hillside Strangler with this nut job woman, a Karen, basically yelling at us like a lunatic.
Or you work for the county or something, or? I live here. That's my property.
We're on the.
We're not standing on your property.
We're on the. We're on the.
No, we can. We totally can. Okay, is that your property if we stand there?
How much do you get that when you're out shooting? Now, you play it pretty low key, but do you get badgered? Hey, what are you doing here? And then my other question is, what do you think about people that live next to these crime scenes? Don't you think that you get what you signed up for? I mean, if you live on Cielo Drive, you're going to have to deal with some traffic. If you lived on Wonderland Avenue or Rockingham, you're going to have to deal with some looky-loos, right? Or what's your thoughts?
Well, I mean, in Cielo Drive, I figured they signed their rights away when they signed up with Tarantino. They let him shoot on that street. So you have nothing to say anymore. I will not listen to you. And there's one woman that lives up there that comes out and screams, but it's like, no, we're done with you. You signed the paper. So
yeah, we met her.
Our out.
We know her.
We met her.
Next to David Onen. Yeah.
But in the case of Wonderland, it's hard to get to. As you know, to find a place to park around there is difficult. So it's really, that was never on our tour because, you're passing by, you'd have to shoot upwards because that street is so narrow. And everyone who lives in there now is a renter, I think. So those are the people that get kind of pissy about it, the renters. It's usually not the owners. The owners have, like when I was in Amityville, I went to the Amityville Horror House, the DeFeo Murder House a couple of weeks ago. And the owners were out there. They know when people are out there, and they were just going about their business. But the minute I got out, I'm low key too because I'm on my phone. You know what I mean? It's just me and my phone. I can stick it in my pocket. But I was out there, and within 20 seconds, I'm on a public sidewalk. I'm not in the street. Within, I'll say 2 minutes, somebody goes by, who's just driving by and honks their horn and gives me the bird. And I'm like, what are you doing? Why? What does this matter to you? It's not like this comes out of nowhere. But and then she had to pass by this display of all this Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger with the knives, and she's coming at me with my phone. It's so stupid. Stupid.
Scott, in her defense, though, giving you the bird, it might have been an actual Thanksgiving invite.
Hey, man, the perils of these jobs, right? Oh, my gosh. We have to take a little verbal abuse. Not too bad, right?
They tried to sell me the Bronco, or they wanted me, because the people that bought the Bronco were Trauma Films. They're the ones that do the crazy...
Lloyd Kaufman.
Yeah, and they wanted me to do tours in that vehicle, and I had meetings about it, and that would have been fascinating to be behind that wheel, but it ended up falling through. But now, when you had the detective on, he talked to you about that Vegas thing, the display they did in Vegas. That was mental. Going to that thing, I mean, that was insane. Seeing all that evidence in person.
Oh yeah, and Scott, the backstory to that is I was in Vegas around OJ that weekend. He got busted. He tried to crash this party we were having at the Palms. I mean, there's like some funny backstories to it, but for him, Kato, for him to put it all on the line like that and come in there with guns ablazing. But we had OJ's kind of manager dude when he was in Florida that recorded all this video of OJ and was trying to work deals. And OJ's got street in him. He's a street dude, from San Francisco. That polished act that, we all saw running through airports. And, he trained himself to be this way, to be marketable. But at the core, I mean, when you hear him talking, like him busting into a hotel room, trying to get his memorabilia back and the way he talks, that's his nature, I think, from growing up on the streets in San Francisco. There's two personalities there.
Yeah. He was, Tom, as we know, he's in Hollywood. He was modeled. He had it was someone coaching him to say, this is what's going to sell. This is that you're an ad man now. You're also the voice, host of Monday Night Football, host of Notre Dame football. This is how you have to come across to America.
And he could be whatever you wanted him to be. You know, he could
Yeah,
be the elegant man that's well dressed. He could
yeah,
also scramble on the street.
yeah.
So yeah, that makes
And he
complete
liked that
sense.
Bel Air lifestyle. You know, he liked the crowd. He liked hanging out at Riviera or Bel Air Country Club wherever he was a member. I mean, that was his world.
And I think one day, Tom and I'll probably have, because my dear friend is David Zucker, and he's got incredible Naked Gun stories of OJ. So and not really complimentary. So, but that's a whole other thing of OJ's persona.
Hey, we're going to move on to Menendez. We're going to talk about Charles Manson, another one of Scott's specialties, and then the Cecil Hotel. But before we move on to Menendez, Scott, I got to tell you this story about Kato, mentioning Zucker. So when Kato got married 3 years ago in the backyard of David Zucker's house in Brentwood, okay, beautiful backyard. David Zucker, writer of Airplane, Naked Gun, brilliant
Director,
comedy
too.
writer, director. He
Scary
wrote,
movie.
directed, wrote screenplays, hosted Kato, and I was there. It was a small wedding. Kato does his little speech in the backyard, like a little toast. And Scotty goes, this has been marvelous. This is beautiful. Just what a magical day. And David, thank you so much. Thank you so much for just allowing us to have this wedding in your backyard. It was beautiful. And oh, by the way, thanks for not inviting Nordberg.
Yeah.
You have to be quick, but I'm pretty quick when it comes to that stuff. I was dying.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was good.
For those that know, Nordberg was OJ played Nordberg, and that was obviously when OJ was alive.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right.
Wow.
Great time. Great thing. David and I are Milwaukee boys.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to Menendez. And, it's in the news, it's out of the news. It was in the news a lot this past year. We've covered it greatly. We've gone to the tours, we've gone to the sites, and it's an emotional thing. I think there's a lot of gray area, but there's also some black and white here. Do you think they were abused? Do you not think they were abused? If you think they were, you're going to be a little more lenient. If you think they weren't abused, you're going to want them to rot in prison. So it comes down to that. And did they serve enough time? And when Scott, when you look at murders, there's got to be motive. Obviously, motive is one of the most important things. Do you believe that it was greed that was the motive, or do you believe they were abused? Where do you fall on that?
I agreed. I mean, I'm not a fan. I'm not a supporter. I don't think social media should influence criminal cases, and which is what happened. The COVID boredom, is what got the attention, and celebrities becoming involved. That is gross. I found it. I'm not going to say they didn't, and I think their second trial was terrible. I think that was terrible. What they were forbidden to include into the trial, but if they claim self defense, there were no weapons there. They were watching television and these kids came, the fact that the journalists that you had on spoke to him months later, and they're all chipping and chippy and chirpy, I should say, and walking around the house and in the murder room and laughing and talking. It's like, and he had no idea that they had done it already. The fact that they went through, the funeral masquerade and the spending and the condos and the restaurant. Yeah, I think they may have used that as an excuse, if that even happened. The parents were never going to win Parents of the Year awards, but in my opinion, he was a monster, a tyrant. Jose Menendez was, but the other stuff, I wasn't there. But it's become a really good excuse, and
Scott, I think succinctly you put it perfect. I just think because of how many detectives Tom and I've had on shows and how many crime shows I've seen and shot and been part of, 99% it's always greed. And anytime someone kills somebody, it's find out, do they have a life insurance policy? So that I go along with, but no one deserves to be shot with their face off, no matter what. And maybe they're abused, like you said, the parents are going to win Parents of the Year award, but I think it revolved around greed.
the fact that they reloaded and put the gun up to their mother's face, it was looking him looking her in the eye and doing that to them. I mean, that's monster on a whole different level. That is, and I can't. You have to have that in you.
And it kind of opens the door for someone like me to walk in and say, no, not so fast, my friend. No. You know what? I got to say, I'm more on the other side, and almost because it validates what you guys are talking about, because it was so gruesome. And to do that to your parents, can you do that just because you want a couple $1 million? I think it has to be something so far deeper than that. I think there has to be rage, hatred, just I can't live under this anymore, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to find. And if the abuse had been happening since they were super young, I could see it all bubbling up to that moment. Now, Kato and I part of our tours, we went to the alibi sites. We went to Century City Theater. We went to the Santa Monica Food Festival that they went to, and you can almost get inside their heads, and then they get those tickets, and they realize, the timestamp doesn't match. But I don't know. I think that's why this one is so interesting. Obviously, it's Hollywood, it's big, and it happened in the late 90s, late 80s, early 90s. But I think to go after your mom too tells me she knew and she didn't do shit about it. And maybe we just didn't know the full scope of how brutal Jose was. But there's so many parallels with the OJ thing too, just because Jose ran Hertz and OJ worked for Hertz and they were at the same house having dinner. I don't know. Did I change your guys' opinion at all? Or
No.
okay.
Not really. And by the way, Tom and Scott, we had the cousin on, and I'm sorry, I forget her name. And she's very, and by the way, she's a terrific person, and she has a compelling story. But I think kind of regardless, time served, we're going to find out in the next parole hearing. But as far as I like I said with Scott, it's greed, and then the buying of things afterward. It's
so
just
bad. And just masquerading, just the weeping and the crying and
Yeah, but are you basing it off the TV show on Netflix?
No.
Okay.
No. Ryan Murphy is like the Kenneth Anger of our time, and he just makes shit up, and he's a terrible.
Yeah.
Oh, he has some stuff on his karma, but I mean Clark Fogg, who was the forensic pathologist in Beverly Hills, told me that was the only crime scene that he ever went into. He needed an umbrella to go into that because it sprayed everywhere, and that's it. Just they shot and killed their father on the first shot. And they had more weapons, and they could have just gone for the mother next. But it was just shooting left breast, right arm, kneecaps, back of the head. It's brutal, and you're right. Anger has a part to do with it, but all the will doctoring beforehand, and it just even if that was the case, they destroyed any credibility with their actions, I think.
Well, I mean, look, they were going to get the money anyway, and they already had an affluent lifestyle. That's why I think it wasn't just about the money. My opinion. I mean, that's what makes a good
But
debate.
then Jose changed the will so they wouldn't be getting the money. That was what made them take the computers and try to get them hacked so they can get rid of the original will. Like I said, even if it happened, and I'm not discounting that it may have happened, and shame might have been a part of the reason, but it wasn't shame; it was anger. And yeah, I just can't. I can't.
Kato, final thoughts?
the fact that you knew, you said the coroner that walked into who was the person that walked into the house? He needed an umbrella?
Oh, Clark Fogg.
Clark Fogg. That just makes me think about that case going to Brian Kohlberger of people saying that they had to wear galoshes and boots because there's so much blood. I just think the gruesomeness of any crime scene, the people that have to go in there, it just points, first of all, to lunatics that would do something like that. But my God, what a job they have to do to go into crime scenes.
Scott, I know you haven't covered the Wonderland one as much, but Tom Lang did that one along with his partner Robert Souza, and literally Tom Lang has the line. Somebody told him when he pulled up to the crime scene, "Better get your galoshes on." That's how bad that one was. Can you believe there was a YouTube video out there not long ago about the crime scene? I mean, I could not believe it. It was the one that Tom Lang did. He narrated. I couldn't believe YouTube still had that.
Well, that was put on. That's what's bizarre about that is when they did the Val Kilmer movie, Wonderland, starring, he has John Holmes. As an extra feature on that DVD is the original crime scene footage. So for your entertainment, after you watch the movie, here are the victims on a platter. That what I found that bizarre.
But you know what? It was the first videotape crime scene. That was the first time. They had it in their trunk and they went and got it.
I had to go. I went through that house when it was empty, and we went there with the tape, and we walked through the rooms, and sort of, this is where she was laying in a northwesterly, this sort of business, and going through every one of those rooms with the actual videotape was crazy. Because again, you've seen the house. It's the size of, the walls are like 15 feet. You know what I mean? It is a tiny house. So imagining, I know that they were a nuisance, those people were, and then people were probably hearing all those noises and not going, oh, there they go again, with the people next door. But it's amazing to me that they laid there for a whole day and nobody, they just figured, oh, they're those crazy people again.
as opposed to the Menendez house, which Tom and I did, which they had construction crews going in there for whoever just bought the house, because they know going in this house was a house of murder.
It's probably the third or fourth time that one in Beverly Hills has been renovated. Every time someone buys it, they're going to like switch it up a little.
One time I went there on Halloween, and I had the picture. It's on my website. A picture. They had one of those inflatable Grim Reapers that were put around the front doors. So, and it was like, really? That's not the first time the Grim Reaper's been at that front door.
I guess you just embrace it. I guess you just embrace it. Kato and I, we're going to talk about the Cecil Hotel. We're going to talk about Charles Manson, because we have the expert. Scott, no doubt, is the expert on that. We're going to kick around some theories there. When we went and visited the Cecil Hotel, Kato and I were looking at that thing, and they had some like bizarre, like creepy mask, scary smiley. I mean, just to bring out the added element of it. Remember that, Kato? I mean, that mask that was just on that
one
window.
Of the windows had someone's face. It was just bizarre.
Yeah. Hey, Scott, before we hit Manson next, you've been to these like we have, and people always want to know, can you feel something there? Is there a presence? Is there an evil? Is there something lingering? When we go there, we're there to, document it, and, we got to think about what we're going to say. But have you ever gone into one of those places, one of the crime scenes, the famous ones in LA, and actually like maybe felt a little something that was off?
Yeah, I have. Like, well, you guys have been to David Oman's house, so we on Cielo Drive, and that house is haunted. I know David's a wonderful guy, but he is very colorful. But I've been in his house and I've seen stuff. I've seen enough to know, and I do believe in that stuff. But I'm also a skeptic. I'm not going to go, oh, there's an orb. Orbs, that's dust. Yeah, I want to see some stuff. And at David's house, I was sitting there, and the kitchen. There's a bar right there at his dining room, and on the other side of the bar is a kitchen. And I'm talking to David, and right behind him is a stack of red Solo cups that just went pow, and they all went flying. I'm like, I'm there, I've seen it. So I'm not, and the two places I've been to, and coincidentally, it's two places that you're talking about today, the Wonderland house and the Cecil. And both times at both of those places is when I got to get out now. This is because sometimes when people, but if I go to places where somebody died, I will sit where they sat, lay where they lay, because I want to see the last thing they ever saw in their lives. Yeah, this hotel, that apartment, whichever. So when I went to the Wonderland house, we were on the top floor. Where I don't remember the gentleman's name. The person who was up there, who was one of the murder victims. I believe he's the one that fought back. And there's photographs of him against the wall. And I went against the wall and sat there, and it was like, okay, this is bad. I'm leaving now. Wow. And the Cecil was another one. That was at the end of it. I'm like, I called Troy. I said, get the holy water out, get the salt out. I'm not walking in the house until this is taken care of, because that was a really terrible place. But I'm not one to go that way. I really am not.
I'll tell you what, Kato, you can chime in too, but there's something about Wonderland. There just is. I mean, when those guys walking in with the bad intentions they had with pipes and the carnage they caused, there's something about that. My theory on Oman's house, because we felt it, trust me. And then my daughter, Scott, is a athlete. She runs track for UCLA, and David Oman is the biggest UCLA fan on the planet. Have you been in his man cave downstairs? Everything is UCLA. I just could not believe it. So my son and I went there too, and something bizarre happened when my son and I were there. Like Dash fell out of his chair. He literally fell out of it, and has it on video. And plus, he's got 25 cameras all over there live, right? So you're always going to see something. But here's my theory, and tell me what you think of this. I think Jay. And I think either one of the weapons was discarded on that lot because the house hadn't been built yet, David Oman's, or maybe Sharon and Jay went for a walk every day, and that was a magical place, something right there on his lot. I think either a weapon was there. I think it is haunted. I think something like that.
Well, I also think Tom's got a valid point. I think that's possibly the hill they climbed up to get to Cielo. And they could have used that property. That was not a house just yet.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't.
But that's what this is about.
Yeah.
Why not? Why that plot of land then?
Yeah.
No, it's not necessarily that plot of land. It's the canyon. The whole canyon from Sunset to Mulholland. So many famous things have happened to people on that, either on that lot or in that canyon or happened to, like right across the way was Rudolph Valentino's house, who died in a strange way in New York, but he lived in Benedict Canyon. George Reeves, Superman, died on Benedict Canyon Boulevard with a bullet in his head. 3 doors down is Susan Berman from the Durst murder, that Jinx show, killed execution style on Benedict Canyon Boulevard. Yvette Vickers, the actress who rotted away in her house for several months before they found her, Benedict Canyon. Elizabeth Montgomery died on Benedict Canyon. I can go down from Sunset and name 100. I wouldn't say 100. I would say like 30. People being Jimi Hendrix got in a car accident. There's another actor named Tom Pittman who drove off Benedict Canyon Boulevard. They didn't find him for 5 months in his car. So many things have happened. And I do believe that it is not an ancient Indian burial ground, but at the corner of Chevy Chase and Benedict Canyon is the Beverly Hills Women's Club. And in front of the Women's Club is bushes, shrubs. And I don't know why this is, but if you go up there and open the shrubs, there's a monument to 3 Native Americans who were killed on that spot, on that very spot at the corner of Benedict and Chevy Chase. So, there.
Well, and speaking of that, Omen down in that little dungeon, that little narrow way had that Indian, the part that Tom, remember the compartment had all dirt. He said this was like Indian land in that. And I even smelled the strong, I said, David, I smell urine. You think it's a spirit, but no, it's just his dogs peeing all over the place. So
poor Reggie. Reggie just passed away a couple of weeks ago.
And Reggie would never go up that extra level. Or, no, he'd never go. That was weird.
That
okay,
was
so
weird.
so Scott.
That was so strange.
Now I hear what you're saying. I love Reggie. He was great. Benedict Canyon, I get it, but you're also getting very creative people, risk takers, high drug use, taking chance. So there can be a lot of death there. I get that, but why? Why did all the spirits decide to converge on David Ullman's property? That's my point. I think something specific.
Who's to say? Who's to say? Nobody else is going to talk about it. David does. Maybe because Benedict, Laurel, Coldwater, those are thoroughfares. They always have been. Back in, hundreds of years ago, they were thoroughfares. So, people might have been killed on that property before. That now in Cielo, where David lived, that's way up there. So that's not a thoroughfare. I could not explain that. I don't know. Maybe somebody was hiding up there and was killed. Or maybe it is Jay and Sharon. I don't know. But it is. Certainly a bizarre concentration of incidents.
And I want to stay on point here, but there's also, I think from Scott on your page, I thought there's another house that is empty still, but there was a massive murder in it and might be off Hollywood by Los Feliz or the
the murder, the Perelson house, right? Yeah, they call it.
It's just empty, right?
Murder house. Well, I don't know anymore. It was bought by, it was sitting there vacant for 30, 40, 50 years. But they were always saying, the Christmas tree is still there and the gifts are still there. But the Perelsons were Jewish. So I can't tell you why there were Christmas decorations there. But I know that the house, when I looked in the windows, there were Rubbermaid containers. So people had access to the house. I believe it was left to a couple who were part of the caretakers team, and they died and the son got it. Now, when the house was finally sold, it was by Gloria Allred's daughter who bought it and gutted it. I mean, just down to the bolts, and then quit. She just sold it. So I don't know what the status of it anymore, what the status of the house is anymore. But that was a bizarre story. Certainly, it gave the evidence to give it all that bizarre story flair. But there's more to that that's practical, but Perelson was nuts and he did do what he did and then swallowed cyanide or whatever it was that he did. Killing his wife with a hammer or whatever, and then the daughter gets hurt and is running down the road. And that is nuts.
Yeah, it's a story.
Well, the biggest curse on Mulholland and Benedict Canyon is no phone service, even in 2025. I mean, come on, man. There's some spirits haunting the cellular towers there or something. I mean, isn't it crazy? Especially when you consider how many Hollywood people live there and you're on the phone making deals happen. Oh, going through the canyon. Yeah. I'm on Mulholland, right?
Technology has moved on. There's no excuse for this.
Yeah. All right. So Charles Manson, let's get into this a little bit too. And I'm not saying there's another theory. There's plenty of things to kick around here. One is a great debate. Could Charles Manson sing? I mean, do you think when you've heard the recordings, and then obviously you had the situation with the Wilson brother, Dennis Wilson, right? And so all this musical thing comes into it. But do you think he had musical talent, Scott? I wasn't into it. Cato kind of likes it. I didn't think he was a good singer. What do you think?
I think he was okay. He was okay. He wasn't bad. He wasn't good. He was okay. I think that because he was such a narcissist that he needed full control of his music. And when people wanted to do something with production with his music, he wouldn't have anything to do with it. He can carry a tune. But he was a spectacle because he'd come in with all these, skinny, scabby, dirty, stinky girls, and they were like, they'd swoon and they, do their whatever dances to him, and he was a spectacle. And I think that's why Dennis Wilson was fascinated by him. He was also giving him all the girls and drugs he wanted, and Dennis, all he wanted to do was have girls and drugs. So finally, Amantha wasn't terrible. He just says, "Oh, maybe this guy's got an album in him. I'll introduce him," and that's how that. Yeah. So I don't think he was. I don't think he was particularly good or bad.
You got to compare him though, Tom. At that time, we're talking. This is the Bob Dylan kind of popular Beat voice. So I thought he was very passable. That he could easily have gotten a deal, and then sound mixing and all that. That someone could have.
Yeah.
Any talent manager, anybody in the record executive can make people stars. It still exists today.
He kind of sounded like Donovan to me. There's an element
great,
of Donovan.
Great call. He did sound like Donovan.
Yeah, because there's just so many different things that play into it. Drugs, a cult, his cult presence. What could a guy have done like that if he had like put it towards something positive? He could have been Tony Robbins meets Elvis or something. You know what I mean? It's just so weird how these twisted minds go off the rails. And it always seems to happen in LA, or at least on the biggest stage. And I think it's because we attract these types of people, creators, dreamers, lost souls, dreamers, and they come here. Helter Skelter.
But he was charming, and Manson was like OJ in the sense that, he could be whomever you wanted him to be, or whoever he would be, whoever you needed him to be. So, that's why he did the father figure business and all that kind of business. So, I read his biography, and I would never ever say that somebody is born bad, except in his case. He was dealt a really bad deck to start with, and he could have turned. He went to Boys Town. He could have, but he chose not to. So he just went the easy way out, I guess. And were drugs involved? Certainly, if drugs were involved, but so was everything else.
Especially we start dealing with hallucinogenics, right? LSD. I mean, that's different than, little coke or something. You know what I mean? It's just like there's just a different reaction. You can't say that he's unintelligent. Like I watched the entire Tom Snyder interview he did with him. And then in KCRA in Sacramento, the NBC station there, they got great access and they went in there. And if you were able to challenge him, but he's, it's like when you decipher, or like with AI, you could take a Hitler speech and it's translated in English, so you actually hear what he's saying. You can almost see how people can just be so moved by him. Same thing with Charles Manson. They have this presence, right? It's the way they communicate, even though he was short or whatever, but you get it, if you're a lost soul.
Yeah, Manson picked things from everything. He spent time at the Fountain of the World, which is a cult which still exists over there in Box Canyon. And that's a guy, Krishnaventi, who was the head of this thing, who started the whole thing, had like 20 wives. And that's where he got with the robes and all that business. And then they actually, I don't know if you've ever looked into this, but one of the guys whose wife was taken by him strapped dynamite to himself and blew he and Krishnaventa up. And, at this cult in Box Canyon, which still exists. It's one of those sovereign places, so you can't go into it or they'll kill you, kind of a thing. But so Manson took what he needed from all those people, their behavior, and because when he got out of prison in he went to San Francisco and he watched these street preachers. He's like, well, this will work for me. Look at that. He's got all these chicks. So he just saw, as an opportunity, and people listened to him because he was a good speaker. He wasn't particularly smart intelligence wise, but he was smart street wise, and he knew how to get things done. And that's what's so interesting.
And that's why I think, Tom, that he would have been a huge music star because of what he did as an evil person. Had he translated that exact aura that he had into becoming a musician, I think he would have been a superstar. Just because of the control he could have over people, and like Tom said, watching on Tom Schneider, you kind of he's a compelling character, and if he turned it into good, and as a musician, he'd have followers just like today, how you have followers for anybody that's an artist.
Yeah, but he was also he's not self-aware enough to want to get. I mean, I think he looks at anybody that says anything negative against his dream as evil, and they're wrong.
Right. That's why he didn't become that person.
But at that point too, everyone was becoming famous. It was so easy. He hung out at Mama Cass's house just like Mickey Dolenz did, and David Crosby and Joni Mitchell, and Manson was there too. They don't like to play up that angle, but it's true. And Mama Cass's boyfriend, Pick Dawson, was hanging out at the Spawn Ranch and knew all these people. So it wasn't like they randomly came around. One week the Byrds would make a hit, and the next week, Joni Mitchell had a hit, and then Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and then Manson's like, "Fine, I can do this," and he was around the people who could do it for him. So
Paul Revere and the Raiders, everybody.
Yeah, and he would supply drugs and girls to these places in exchange. He'd get some attention, and that's how he got in, because nobody was checking IDs back then. And he'd let this guy in. He's pretty interesting, and he'd pull his guitar out, and the scabby girls would be dancing, and like he was a novelty. And
maybe his ultimate goal was to listen to Casey Kasem's top 40 each week and then just kill all 39 or 40 of them, and then he'll be the only one left.
That was the Beatles.
Yeah, right. Hey, I'll tell you one lasting thing. That when you think of Helter Skelter, Charles Manson, all these characters on the side that were involved, and you think of the Beach Boys, and you think how pristine their image is. And California girls, beach, come on surfing. I hate the Beach Boys. I don't like their music. I know I'm in the minority, but isn't it funny? Even like you take this little group, the Beach Boys, and you think, man, when you throw music into it, like Dennis Wilson was no angel, right? I'm not saying he was committing crimes, but I mean, women, just craziness. I mean, the rock star lifestyle. You wouldn't think of it even with the Beach Boys, but it was there, and he was intertwined in it.
Yeah, and they recorded a Manson song, so there's something to be said. They chose to record that very complicated, bizarre song and perform it on the Mike Douglas show, which is just outrageous. But they did, so they thought something of Manson's music. They thought he was worthy, or at least Dennis did. But the whole group went along with it, so it's hard to. And Brian produced it, so there's something to be said about all of that. And here's just karmically, you mentioned Hitler, and it brought up a weirdo fact that, people always say, who's evil? Well, how would you define evil? And weirdly, they always say Adolf Hitler, and they always say Charles Manson. And Roman Polanski's family were killed in the Holocaust because of Adolf Hitler, and his wife and unborn child were killed in Benedict Canyon because of, ultimately, Charles Manson. And I think it's a bizarre coincidence.
It is. I mean, that's kind of one that goes, holy crap. And when you put it together, you're going, holy crap, right? Two that fit the mold, and then one that was, on the sideline, but involved in both of them.
That goes back into that thing of cosmic karma, whatever it is, because I didn't know that, and that's pretty.
And you think, okay, Roman is messed up, as we all know. All these people are. You talked about Dahmer. Well, Dahmer's a different animal, but I mean, all these people have pasts, and the fact that Roman, there's no excusing his behavior, but you can look at his past and go, well, yeah, that's messed up. So
yeah, all right, so good stuff. Let's end this one on the Cecil Hotel. So look, this thing. Shit, think how many times that we've driven by it, just the three of us, before the Netflix special, right? Where maybe you knew a little bit about it, but now ever since that one, and I thought Netflix really did a good job. I mean, that was Ron Howard and Brian Glazer, but man, they would get your mind spinning, and like at the end of every episode, I was convinced, okay, that's the truth, right? And then we had Amy Price on, the manager, right? The star, and we love her. She was fantastic on our show. And but she went through hell. But I mean, think about her making the decision to continue to work there because she loved the employees. But you had mentioned that's another one that you couldn't get out of there fast enough, right? And there's just something about it, its setting and everything. But how much do you think there's even more shit that went on in that place that we don't know about, or do you think there's sort of this internet fascination with this thing where it's taken on even a bigger like kind of mythical like reputation that it actually is in reality.
Yeah, I mean, people do die in hotels all the time. I mean, there's a procedure in hotels for, when they, you do this at this time or take them down this elevator or something like that. There's in big hotels that happens, the Chateau Marmont and the Hollywood Roosevelt, so in that regard, it was never, since she was taking it over, it was never a, posh hotel at that point. So there were a lot of undesirable characters, but this stuff that goes back to the 30s and the 40s, people jumping out windows and things like that and killing people on the street. And there is a bizarre collection. Now, I don't know if the hotel next door to it has that past either, and I don't know how much these are documented, but if you go just search newspapers and put in Cecil Hotel and then eliminate anything from Elisa Lam forward. And it's just, this is this plethora of bizarre, instances. It's this, Elisa brought it up to the because nobody knew Richard Ramirez lived in that hotel. Where did that come from? But all of a sudden people started doing deep dives into it. And then some things are just unbelievable, like the other one from Vienna,
Yeah, the
Vienna,
serial killer.
Unterweger, yeah, and the fact that he, much like the Menendez kids, represented himself as a success story and rehabilitated, and ended up at talk shows here's the successful stories, writing books, and he comes to America and kills more people. That was bananas. So
And plucks him from his window. He could see him, streetwalkers. Like, he could see him from his window, and he'd say, "That's the one." And
yeah, yeah. So when you're talking, and then Elisa Lam, of course, is the cream on the top of the cake. Now, they always say, how could she have got up there? Well, it was easy. I've been in that hotel. I've been in almost every room in that hotel where anything notorious happened. Because when I did an episode of Ghost Adventures in there, and at that point, everyone that was a permanent resident was staying on one floor, the second floor. So the entire hotel was open for us. So I knew which rooms to go to. And, the power wasn't on. So we were going through with flashlights, and that had probably something to do with it. But when the door was open when Elisa Lam went up there. It's not a difficult ladder. It's a rickety wooden ladder, but it's easy to get up there. And the lid on the thing was not locked. It was easy to open it up. So the most simplest, definition or explanation can often be the explanation. She was mentally ill. However, all those things happening in one place, you can't deny that. And so I don't, portal or whatever that is, I don't know. The concentration is insane. And it's really funny because you've been into the lobby. You know how ornate that lobby is. It's beautiful. And then you go in the elevator, the Elisa Lam elevator, of course I had to do the thing with all the buttons. But if you go to the next floor, it's all the shittiest rooms you've ever seen. It's because it's been made into a hostel, or it was. Now I don't know if it.
I mean, the fact, Scott, that you're going through the hotel with a flashlight just adds to the scare factor.
It did.
That's like,
It did. But I didn't,
insane.
when I went, we went into the Ramirez room and they did their shooting and then they took off and I stayed there for a while by myself and I was like, meh, it was interesting because I wanted to experience it for myself. But I didn't get anything from that. The one, but it was funny going on Ghost Adventures because a lot of people slag them off and they say they're all liars or anything like that. I've been on that show 3 times. I've never seen them make anything up, but they do. One time I was walking and the crew was in front of me and my ankle snapped and the whole crew, like 30 people, whip around to get. But we went into the room that's called the Pigeon Goldie room, and that's where the woman who was she would feed the pigeons in Pershing Square, and she was a retired phone operator, I believe, and she was brutally sexually assaulted and brutally murdered in this little 10 by 10 space. Now that has something to do with it too. But I was in the Ramirez room, I was in the Unterweger room. That room I was in, it's like no, the whole time I was in there, the hairs, everything. It's like nah, this is when I gotta go. I gotta go now.
We tried to storm that place and it's a totally different situation because it's a homeless facility now. The county or city owns it, but we did get in and I did make the point. Holy crap. I could see the luster of this thing in the 20s. I could see the luxurious roaring 20s vibe with this place. Everything just seemed top notch from the marble to the crown molding to it just seemed like it had this kind of elegant flair to it. And then you think of the other stuff. Man, did you grab anything out of there? Any artifacts from the Cecil?
No, there was nothing. I mean, I could have grabbed stuff out of the room, but it's all that crappy '90s stuff. I mean, it wasn't like, I could have grabbed probably something out of. I don't. I guess my tastes have changed. And I'm not going to shame anyone for doing that, but I usually go in the victim's direction. And so being in Ramirez's room, I didn't feel like I needed any kind of keepsakes. And I don't want anything from that. Now that place creeped me out. It really did.
Scott, some people call those trophies. I'm kidding.
Well, they don't. There was a
Yeah,
time when
yeah.
I collected that stuff, and I do collect a lot of stuff. But I don't. I wrote John Wayne Gacy, and I got a note back, and I bought a painting from Gacy. I wouldn't do that today, but that was the way I was then. I don't deny that. But I'm more concerned with the other side of it now because there's more of a heart to it. And I don't know. It's not something I really want to. The Cecil is something different too. I mean, it's like, as a holy water, holy water.
The element of the Cecil Hotel is the surrounding area, the outside, which kind of
Yeah.
spooked Tom and I
Yeah.
more because it really was dangerous. And there really were mentally ill people surrounding us during our shoot that we didn't know if something could have happened, which easily could have happened because, we got approached and I freaked out a little bit, and we had people just exercising in the street with their shirts off, built. We had homeless people. We had, Tom and I saw defecating in the street. We saw someone, doing the needle in the arm. It was just like, my God, this is just a bizarre area. It's so the element of crime is very high.
Hey, Scott, you mentioned, you teased us a little bit here. You might want to bust something out of that freaking museum-like office of yours. Anything to show us? Anything cool, either from what we've talked about today or, some of the tours we've been on, or...
Well, I'm looking at what's like right here, and I've got like, well, no, right now I'm working on a story about Betty Page, and I just got out her funeral thing. Oh, here's a check that's from Kitty Menendez. I got
Who
a
was it
canceled
written
check
to?
from
Or
her,
what?
and it's written to cash, $200.
So maybe do you think one of the boys got a hold of the checkbook and wrote it out to cash?
Oh, I didn't look at who signed it actually. That's interesting. I wonder who signed it.
God, that's crazy. Where'd
Oh,
you get
that's
that?
her.
Like,
It's her signature. Yeah.
you get it on an
That's
auction or something, or...
yeah, I did. Yeah. What did I just get? Oh, I got a document the other day. I got in an auction that was a contract from Mark Lindsay and Terry Melcher made a song together, and it's a contract signed by them both. But they just had an auction at Julian's where they were the desk that used to be in the house on sale because they rented the house furnished. That house, the same furniture was in that house was in Candace Bergen and Terry Melcher's house, which was also in Rudolph Altobelli's house, who still lived in the house, or he owned it. So all that furniture, when Mark Lindsay told me they wrote this song on that desk in that room, and the piano in that room that song was composed with was in the same room that heard those screams and those horrible things. So I found that fascinating. And but that was just on. Oh, here's something that's kind of fun. I've got an album that's signed by Sharon and Patty Duke and Barbara Parkins. I got that from a buddy of mine who gave it to me. But there's a Sharon Tate autograph on that one. So yeah, there's. I mean, I look at the stuff and it's like part of the landscape anymore. I'm
Well,
like looking. Oh, that's kind of fun.
Scott, wait a minute. You also have, am I correct? Sharon Tate's bra?
You want to see it? Okay, hang on one second. Okay, this is all. This is my box of Sharon Tate items, and yeah, these are items. Her sister, Patty Tate or Deborah Tate, put these things up for auction, and it was a really bizarre thing that these personal items of Sharon's were put on auction because they are quite personal, like curlers. I mean, isn't that weird? But I mean, that's the kind of stuff I.
Wow. But just to think that, all we know about her and it existed, you're holding it and you have it in your house. Like it belonged to her life at some point. It meant something.
Now, this is something I've always like her eye mask when she slept. I mean, it's like,
It's
but
bizarre.
I love this.
Yeah,
And this is her suede brush. You know what I mean? These are for shoe care. But that's the kind of stuff I love because it makes these people human beings. They're not just black and white pictures in a
That's what
book.
exactly. It humanizes them, and it makes it even more
Yeah.
tragic when you think about it, right? Because you have these mundane things.
Yeah.
That's what she get.
You go, yeah.
So
You
this
say,
is
I used to do that stuff.
you what?
Like you said, dehumanize. It's like, oh my God, a shoe brush. Of course, I have that one. You become very human.
Everyone's got one of those things. This is a sewing kit. That she probably used to. What just emergency sewing. Where is it? So this is just the stuff that has thread and needles and junk in it. But this was Sharon, and I love that personal stuff. Now I don't even like handling this thing because it's really creepy to have a guy holding up somebody else's underwear. But then again, her sister sold it, so there's that element to it too. So I'm not gonna pick this up with my bare hands because it creeps me out. But you can see it's tiny. It's really tiny. So. Oh, and here's a curiosity. This is the front page of Sharon's autopsy report, autographed by Dr. Noguchi, who did the autopsy report, and he said it was the weirdest thing he'd ever been asked to
I bet
sign.
you that's the only one he's ever done.
But when I met Noguchi and I'm shaking his hand, and this is the guy who autopsied Bobby Kennedy, he autopsied the Tate victims, he autopsied Marilyn Monroe was his first big case. He was there for all those things, and I'm shaking his hand. I'm like, this hand, Natalie Wood, he was in Natalie Wood. That's really gross to say it, but this is a man who handled these people personally. And he was always very respectful. A scientist. And he would answer any question as long as it was an intelligent question. You're not going to say, what was it like to be in the room with Marilyn Monroe? You could say, well, scientifically, how did this or what did this? And he'd be very, very matter of fact.
No, it would be interesting. Like,
Yeah, on his terms, right?
yeah, or like
Here's a
there's
little.
more significance to this autopsy because so many people are interested. Do you get nervous? Can you make a mistake? Things like that. It would be really. It'd be fascinating to have a conversation with him. So,
Tom, here's a little fun fact for you, Tom. Did you know that a girl that has an A-cup bra can park handicap legally in LA? I'm only kidding.
and with that, it's a
know
Kato
that?
joke.
How
It's
do
a
you
Kato
know
joke.
that?
It means you're handicapped as an actress. So
Okay.
I got it.
I had to throw it in
That
there.
was actually hilarious. That was great. A great Katoism out of nowhere. Hey, Scott, thanks so much, my man. Love it. We need to do this twice a year like we have been doing. So this is fantastic.
Well, thank you. Thanks for asking. I appreciate it.
Maybe
Thank you, Scott.
maybe we can bug you up there. Maybe play a little golf or something. Jump in a pool up in the Palm Springs area, the desert. Mr. LA, Mr. Detroit up there now. But hey, happy holidays. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. And
Oh, don't forget Julie Departed Tours on YouTube, please.
no, hit it all yourself. I've got the whole sheet right here. Come on, you
Yeah.
go first, and I'm gonna reinforce it.
Well, I just want to say this is what I do now because COVID shut my business down. I have put everything in boxes. I came to Palm Springs because I had hoped to open up a museum here because we thought about because we own the Jane Mansfield car, the '68 Buick that she was actually killed in, and we had it on display in LA, and we were looking for other places once we shut down the business, and we went to New Orleans, we went to Dallas, but nobody there knows who Jane Mansfield was. So here in Palm Springs, everyone has a history here, so we logically came here. It's just that now we need funding to do a museum, but that's what the plan is. That's why we moved down here. So because of that, I've taken to YouTube, and thankfully my YouTube channel is okay. I got a lot of followers. As you guys know, you have a lot of followers. Followers doesn't mean anything, it's a badge of honor, but it's the viewers that but it's nice to say, well, I have this amount of followers, but it doesn't translate. So it's hard work to make a couple of bucks, and that's what I have to do. But I love what I do, and I give. It's like I always say their names out loud. They won't be forgot, and that's what I try to do. Is just keep people and keep people talking about them.
And Palm Springs, the perfect place for you to open that up, especially with James Manfield. And they've got that, I forgot what street, with that big Marilyn Monroe statue, right?
Yeah.
Or it's out the main
It's
street.
like 25 or something like that, 30 feet tall. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's what, I was sort of surprised when we moved down here because there's not a lot of kitsch factor. I always thought it would be. I thought it'd be really fun, everyone walking around like Lovey Howell, but it's very, they take the mid-century stuff very seriously. And I know that when I asked city council about opening a museum, they're a bit sniffy about it. But, but I've never wanted to make a proper museum. I want a roadside attraction. That's all I've ever wanted.
I want to just buy one of Frank Sinatra's old houses. I think that would be so cool. Live in one of
Well, if you
Frank's
believe the
homes.
hype, he's been in every single one of them.
Yeah, well, I do. Hey, so yeah, Dearly Departed Tours, the documentary 6 Degrees of Helter Skelter, and we'll have the link to your YouTube channel, obviously, in the notes here. But hey, if you're having a down day, no one gets more positive commentary than you on YouTube. Everybody loves what you do. Me and Kato, we get hits here and there, but your content is so good, and it's and you've been doing it for a very long time. So thanks, we really appreciate it. It's always great, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks for having me on again, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
Okay, great. And go back in our archive, and we had another great episode with Scott, probably in June of this past year, and obviously dive into all of Scott's stuff, especially now over Thanksgiving break, man. If you're not into football and sports, man, true crime, baby, plenty of stuff. Okay, for the one and only Kato, K-Train Kalen, and Scott Michaels, one of the gurus of true crime content, I'm Tom Zenner. Thanks for watching us, everybody, and we will see you very, very soon.